um, distinguished doctors, consultants, ladies and gentlemen, who join both on ground and online. In fact, recently, not quite recently, in 2021, I addressed the same gathering in 2021 on aflatoxin in coconut oil. First of all, let me thank Dr. Manjula, Professor Chamar, and Professor Madhujith for inviting me to talk on food safety and nutrition. And also Madam Lamavansa is here, who initiated this, not the KSM, but my talk. So the topic today is what you eat, safe and nutritious. It's a multi-million-dollar question, especially in the Sri Lankan context. So I will walk you through an overview and major food safety issues in Sri Lanka, how safety testing is done in food additives and what are food additives, why they are added, excuse me, safety of some of the selected foods, followed by summary. Now, food safety encompasses production, handling, storage, preparation, and from, I will say, from farm to fork, from the farm to the kitchen, we should guarantee the safety. So here we can talk hours and hours, but guaranteeing food safety is a Herculean task on ground. For example, if I summarize how food is produced in the farm and how it finally reaches the kitchen. So we add inputs to plants and harvested, stored, processed, stored again, then finally delivered to retail outlets via bulk storages. There may be slight differences in the steps, but even when it comes to animals, animal-sourced foods, it is the same. So we give some inputs. Like in the previous case, we add fertilizer, other agrochemicals, pesticides, growth hormones. When it comes to animals, antibiotics, growth hormones, water, feed, and finally transport. So there are multi-steps involved. And in each of these steps, we have to make sure the safety. That is why I said at the very onset, it's a Herculean task. Now, with the global trade, it is even more complex. If you look at a label, ingredients, there may be 10 ingredients. One ingredient may be coming from Anuradhapura. The other ingredient may be coming from Tissamahara. The third ingredient may be coming from India. Fourth may be coming from China. The fifth may be coming from Australia. If you look at the items, number of foods that we bring into Sri Lanka, we import about 85% of our food. Example, chili, red chili, nearly 98%, 95 to 8%, we are importing from other countries. Lentils, ratu parippu, for technical reasons, of course, we cannot grow them. Earlier, we used to buy from India. Now, after that, we imported from Australia. Now it is from Canada. Then bee onions, sugar. So many items are coming from elsewhere. Even processed items, they are coming from elsewhere. Now, in food safety, we explain food safety in terms of hazards. There are 4 types of hazards. Physical hazards like stone, grits, sand particles, metal pieces. Then biological hazards. There are about 200 foodborne pathogens already identified by WHO. They are there. Then parasites like Trichinella, Cladosporium, so many. Then chemical hazards, agrochemical residues, we are really worried about. Then at times we have reported radiological hazards as well. If you can remember, in 2011, there was a nuclear meltdown in Fukushima in Japan. After about 2 years, we got canned fish samples, we locally call salmon tins. So this canned fish did contain excessive amounts of radioactive materials, which was written. Risk assessment and management. Now these in food safety, we are trying to stay these hazards. We try to keep them away from food. It is not an easy task, ladies and gentlemen. Now, how do we do this? Now, when we are riding a motorcycle or driving a car, getting out of the house itself is a risky thing. So it doesn't mean that we have to be confined to our homes. So we have to ride motorcycles, we have to drive vehicles, we have to be pedestrians at times. So what are the safety measures we follow? If you are riding a motorcycle, wear helmets, check the motorcycle before rolling out. Vehicle, same thing, wear seat belts. Even if you are in the back seat, you must wear seat belts. And check for any technical failures, then roll. Similarly, in food safety also, we cannot achieve 100% safety, but what we are trying to do is to keep as many hazards as away as possible. We have to make sure that the continuous food supply is not challenged or disturbed. Recent example on aflatoxin, the government decided that if we are to be compliant with strict standards on aflatoxin, we cannot provide free posture for the nation. So they submitted a cabinet paper, which is approved, to relax the limit. If we are more stringent, more strict, we cannot have a continuous supply of free posture. Same thing happened in other countries. When Roosevelt was the president of the United States of America, that time saccharin was used by diabetic population as a non-nutritional sweetener. And there was a petition filed by Food and Drug Administration against the use of saccharin, saying that it is carcinogenic and mutagenic in rat models. That time, there were hundreds, thousands of petitions, the objections sent by general public, mostly diabetic population, to the president, saying that if you try to ban saccharin, you will be ousted from this land. So enormous pressure. So finally, when it comes to do the risk management, it is more socio-political than scientific. The president has to balance all sides. I will walk you through some of the major food safety issues in Sri Lanka. I can summarize, well, different people can summarize in different ways. This is how I used to summarize. Lots of adulterations happen. Use of poor quality raw materials, especially this is happening in the country. And there are some records that even the leftovers dumped at Meetotamulla dump site, certain things are removed. Apparently good ones, they are not good anyway, from the dump site. How can that be good? Are removed and slowly going. The reuse of discarded oil from large hotels. This oil is collected, since oil is quite expensive these days. This is being reused. Not always, but it happens time to time. Unpermitted additives. There has been a rise in the use of red rice, which is of course not substantiated by scientific facts, but people were going behind red rice. So therefore some Mudalalis, what they did was, they mixed white rice with red rice, which is an innocent thing, but it is again a deception. But some traders, they added dyes. Under Sri Lankan law, rice cannot be dyed. Rice cannot be, the dyes cannot be added to rice. And so do spices. Spices cannot be colored in Sri Lanka. The use of unpermitted ingredients. Example, we found when, if you can remember, quite some time ago, the coconut prices were stable at 40-45 rupees. All of a sudden, it shot up to about 60-65 rupees, then came to 80 rupees. Now it is 100 rupees. During this major change happened in some of the roti makers. When we visited, we found a kunek, gunny bags of kunek under. So there's no reason why they should store kunek. Perhaps instead of coconut, they might have added kunek. Kunek might be even tastier, but it is not recommended as a human food. It's only for animal feed. Poor storage and transport. You can see how vegetables are still being transported in Sri Lanka. There have been numerous efforts by Department of Agriculture to introduce plastic crates, but unfortunately, for very fragile items, they are being used, but not for others still. They come up with various reasons. Transportation is difficult, you have to make more trips, and crates are expensive. Yet, this is 2024. We have to move with the rest of the world. Improper processing in unsanitary conditions. Under unsanitary conditions, food is processed, especially the micro level processors. Now, the Ministry of Health introduced premises registration regulations in 2021, but because of the COVID issue, it had to be postponed. Now it is in operation, but there are some operators, they have not registered so far. Many organizations. Foods used for unfit for humans, poor food service, irregularities in imports. Imports should be very well regulated, but unfortunately, it is questionable at times. I can remember I myself tested some samples identified as vegetable ghee, but when I tested in my own laboratory, I found that it had nothing to do with vegetable. It is pure beef fat. So that had been used in the country for making fried rice for a number of years. People thought that it's vegetable ghee, but it was pure beef fat coming from Australia. Then there are many illegal processes. Of course, law enforcement is poor, unfortunately, not in relation to food safety, but in all other areas as well. And we don't have a proper surveillance system. So just to show you that it is not only in Sri Lanka, even in developed countries like Russia, I'm not sure whether you can see the picture well, but you can spot something peculiar here. So these factory workers in a cheese factory, they are in their underwear and they are taking a milk bath. That milk is going to be used for cheese making on the following day. So this has happened in the midnight. So this was reported about less than a couple of years ago, as I remember. And the same thing repeated. Even another year ago, the same thing happened in another European country. So once it came to light and somebody has fortunately video recorded this and released to social media, thanks to that person, this factory was shut down by the authorities. So these things do happen. And this is one of the articles that I wrote when we had this in 2021, as I remember, in the while we had a lot of ban on importation of turmeric. In fact, I did a study in 2017 with Medical Research Institute, Colombo, and we collected nearly 60 bulk samples of turmeric and chili, and they were analyzed for dyes, colorants. And we found that nearly 34% of samples, as I remember, had been adulterated with wheat flour or rice flour, and dyes had been added, because when wheat flour, rice flour is added, it is diluted. So to get the color back, they had some colors. Fortunately, all the colorants that we identified were approved ones, but they are not approved for spices. They are approved for other purposes. This is how dry fish is made in many parts of the country. They are just spread on the shore. Sometimes they use a net, but net is of no help. That is why they are mixed with grit and sand. And one of the major issues with aflatoxins, they are really extremely hepatocarcinogenic. According to the IARC, International Agency for Research on Cancer, aflatoxins, especially B1, has been identified as the top of the list, on the top of the list of most potent liver carcinogens. So this is frequently found in items like peanuts, corn, and coconut products. Many coconut products can potentially, including coconut oil that I will talk on later on. And because of that, they can end up in milk as well. When punak is contaminated, most likely, then when punak is fed to animals, animals give back aflatoxin in a different form, called aflatoxin M1. And DCD was reported in milk powder imported from New Zealand quite about 5-6 years ago, but it is gone now. This DCD was used as a fertilizer additive in their fields. Unfortunately, they did a trial for about 6 months and they never identified traces in milk or meat. So they recommended to the country, but finally somehow it crept into milk. And the New Zealand government, we did not have a consular office in Sri Lanka those days. They warned the government that, okay, DCD traces may be there in milk, but we did not act swiftly. But once the problem was over, we started making shouting. But that time, the problem was over. Then melamine issue, you can remember in 2007, 2008, is melamine toxic? My straightforward answer is no. We are using melamine. That whiteboard is melamine. These are melavia cup saucers, the cutting boards, the countertops, all are melamine. So melamine has been identified as a non-toxic compound. It is nitrogen-rich compound. It is produced, raw material is urea. So urea is heated to about 800 Celsius under low oxygen environments to produce melamine, and melamine is converted to melamine resin. It's a very useful material, cheap. The main producer in the world is China. In 2006, 2005, 2006 time, they had excess amount of melamine. Melamine is a white powder. So unfortunately, some farmers, milk farmers, added melamine powder to increase the protein content of milk. First, they add water to make more money. Then, since when water is added, protein content goes down. In China, the milk is accepted based on protein percentage. To boost protein content artificially, they added melamine powder because melamine contains 66% nitrogen, non-proteinous nitrogen. So that milk ended up in infant milk formula, in pet food, so many other food items. And as a result, there were deaths reported and also renal failure. Nearly 60,000 hospitalizations, and it spread across the world. Sri Lanka too was affected. And some European countries banned our biscuits and bakery items. So is melamine poison? No, not really. Melamine is not a toxic compound, not a poison. Based on LD50 value, melamine is less harmful than table salt if you go by LD50 value. So what went really wrong? Some of the milk powder manufacturers had purposefully added, that time I can remember, melamine 1 metric ton was about 150 US dollars, whereas milk powder was 550 US dollars. So in order to get undue profits, they diluted purposefully, and that had been overdosed. Allowable daily intake was determined. Nearly 200 times of ADI had been there in milk powder. So of course, when you add that high concentrations, melamine, along with there's another compound called cyanuric acid. So melamine cyanurate is very insoluble. So they caused renal tubular blockage that led to renal failure. Many of us have the connotation that always natural is safe and synthetic is unsafe, which is not true. That I will discuss in the next few slides. That there are so many food additives are safely used in the world. There are many natural compounds which are not safe. Not only cyanide, there are many alkaloids now. You doctors are using a lot of pharmaceuticals, and most of the pharmaceuticals are based on alkaloids and other related compounds derived from plants. Now they are not produced by plants, but they are artificially produced. But the origin is traced back to the alkaloids in plants. With that, we will look at what food additives are and how they are being tested. Well, there are more than 2,000 food additives are already in use in the world. And they are added for a particular purpose. They are used in small quantities. Example, colorants, flavorants, non-nutritional sweeteners. They are added in small quantities for a particular reason. And when these are added, we should not mislead customer. Example, strawberry jam. There are two types. One is real strawberry jam. We get real strawberry, crush and make jam. That's another version. We take puhul or ash pumpkin, then add strawberry color, which has nothing to do with strawberry. We add flavorant, which mimics the strawberry flavor, and make puhul jam. Then there you cannot, according to labeling regulations published by the Ministry of Health, the strawberry fruit should not be on the label. It is a deception, cheating. So when there are good alternatives, again, food additives should not be used. Example, canned fish. Canning technology is more than a century old. So in canning technology, you don't need to use any preservative. Just heat and can, that's all. So therefore, when that technology is available, we should not use any alternatives, adding food additives. There are so many colorants, flavorants, flavor enhancers, preservatives, thickeners, stabilizers, anti-caking agents, curing agents, emulsifiers, the list goes on, enzymes, dose strengtheners, clarifying agents, adulterants, acidulants, humectants, binders, etc., non-nutritional sweeteners, fat replacers, antioxidants. Now, before they are sent to the market, stringent protocol has to be followed. Like the drugs are tested, metabolic tests, usually radioisotope, radio-labeled material is used. And for metabolic tests and acute toxicity tests, we use animal models, mostly rodents. Rodents are cheaper. So therefore, either mice or rats are used for this purpose. Then subacute toxicity, subchronic toxicity, chronic tests, chronic toxicity tests are also used. Then finally, whether they are teratogenic, whether they are transplacental, whether they are mutagenic and carcinogenic. Sometimes in the first generation, the symptoms do not appear, but in the following generations, they can appear. So therefore, 7 generational tests are recommended. Now, in order to do all these, it might take 4 or 5 years for sure. So therefore, that is why the number of additives in the world is limited. If it was, now this protocol was first developed by the United States of America. In 1958, January 1st, there was a transition. Earlier, they had Food, Drug and Cosmetic Act. And on 1958, January 1st, they wanted to split. They wanted to separate food. At that point, there had been some additives already in use, like saccharin, cyclamen, so on. Then they decided, okay, if something has been already in use safely based on the usage, okay, we will exempt these. But anything is anything going to be introduced after 1958, January 1st, has to go through all these stringent testing protocol. Now, similarly, onto our part of the world, WHO also introduced similar protocol. So here we are using that protocol, but we don't do the safety testing in Sri Lanka. Safety testing is done in developed countries. Then after this testing, we determine NOEL, or no observable adverse effect level. So on animal models, initially the rats or mice are used. Afterwards, we have to use primates. We have to use mammals, not primates. First, like dogs are used. Then afterwards, primates like monkeys are also used. Based on rat models, we determine this. We feed the animal with the particular additive that is being tested, and we record the response, like their fur, their movements, their pressure, their blood parameters. All these are measured. So you choose a particular response and follow it up. When the concentration goes up, initially you don't see any change, but at one point, the point of inflection, from that point onwards, you can see a response. So we identified this particular level, and this level, say it is 100, this value is divided by 100. If this value is x is divided by 100, that is a safety margin, because we have done this on animals. One could argue that their metabolism is different from ours. And also in humans, it is reported that between the least sensitive and most sensitive people, there's 10-fold difference. So there can be some who are more sensitive than the others. So in order to consider all these factors, we keep 100-fold safety margin. So if NOEL is 100, 100 divided by 100 is 1. So 1 milligram per kilogram is recommended. That becomes an allowable daily intake, or ADI. So that is finally we are getting into the market. So there are two protocols, US Food and Drug Administration, or in the Europe, Food and Agriculture Organization and World Health Organization. The Joint Expert Committee on Food Additives, where Sri Lanka is also a party. There are experts taking part in this committee. This committee meets at least once a year in one particular country, and they review all these matters related to food additives. There are food additives, some are natural, some are called nature identical, some are called synthetic. Some have been in use since antiquity. For example, curing meat curing. To cure meat, we add sodium nitrite. Now, sausages, for example, meatballs. The pink color, any meat product that you find in the market, they are cured. So for curing, we are using sodium nitrite. Why? Because if not, when meat is packed in, say meat is canned or meat is vacuum packed, there's anaerobic environment inside that can definitely promote the growth of Clostridium botulinum. Clostridium botulinum bacterium is a deadly bacterium because that can produce botulin. Even at microgram levels, botulin is severe neurotoxin that can kill a person unless the person is treated. So therefore, you are familiar with infant botulism and regular botulism, wound botulism. So therefore, we cannot take a risk. So therefore, these meat products are treated with sodium nitrite. This has been in use for centuries. They use saltpeter in good olden days. Now, so then in 1960s, two scientists, I cannot recollect their names, they found that when nitrite is added, that produces nitrosamines, and most of the nitrosamines are carcinogens. Then the world was shaken. We have been using this for long, but what are we to do now? Then technologists, scientists, they came up with a solution. When erythrobates or ascorbates are added at 550 parts per million, the problem is nearly solved. Nearly solved. So that has been the practice since 1960s. Now, any meat manufacturer has to add, when sodium nitrite is added, erythrobate or ascorbate should be added so that that problem is nearly solved. There are natural compounds. Example, in colorants, I will show you, there's a compound known as annatto, cochineal. Those are natural colors. The nature identical means we identify the natural compound and we produce synthetically. Like example, annatto is beta carotene compound. That beta carotene can be produced in the laboratory or in a plant. Then that goes into the market. So the same compound, same chemical formula, nature identical. Synthetic case, it is totally different. Example, most of the colorants I will show you in a minute, they are petroleum products. They are derived from petroleum, azo-dyes. Those are 100% synthetic. With that, on food labels, you might have spotted this E-numbering system or INS numbering system. E-numbering and INS numbering are almost similar, but E-numbering is the old system, European numbering system. Instead, we are using now international numbering system or INS numbering system. Based on INS, there are 23 functional classes. I have mentioned the most popular ones. Colorants always should be within 1 and 199. Preservatives, 200 to 299. Antioxidants, so on and so forth. Example, these are the approved colors in Sri Lanka. Carmoisin, the INS number is given to the right. Ponciofoa, erythrocin, allura red, sunset yellow, tartrazine. All these are synthetic dyes. The list goes on. We have 9 colorants. Brilliant blue, indigo team, and fast green. Most of the countries have already banned fast green. And in Sri Lanka also, you can see green colored ice cream and products. Manufacturers know this, at least the large manufacturers. So rather than using fast green, they use 2 colors to get the green color without using fast green. That's a good thing. These are natural colors. Annatto. Annatto is mostly produced in South American countries. When you crack open, you can find seeds. It's a mucilaginous matter. You wash this, dry, and grind to a powder. It's yellow color, nice yellow color. It is in use in Sri Lanka. So what I listed out here, those are the synthetic ones. We have approved annatto. Annatto is in use in butter, margarine, yellow products. You find annatto. Cochineal is from this animal. It's a larvae insect, and insect is killed, and the inside blood is taken. It is cochineal. Then chlorophyll powder is used nowadays as colorants. So are these food colorants safe? Yes, approved colors are generally safe. I cautiously use the term generally. And most of these are synthetic ones are azo dyes or synthetic dyes. Safety testing is done, but with regard to some colorants, safety testing is not complete. I mentioned to you a number of different tests. Generally, these are done, but there may be some which have done incomplete. So the major safety concerns are allergies, asthma. In the UK, about 5-6 years ago, this was reported. Hyperactivity among children, especially when the colorants and preservatives are co-ingested. They can, especially children, can become hyperactive. And mutagenicity and carcinogenicity are also reported. Example, fast grain. So you can see they are sulfur-containing compounds. That is the reason why they are allergenic and also they can cause asthma. So they should be used carefully. Now, in the market, you can see colored products, especially drinks. The manufacturers use quite a bit of colorants. Why? The reason is our population requires that to be intensely colored. Otherwise, they think that it is of poor quality. Say orange. If you prepare Sri Lankan orange, it is dull colored. Color is not very attractive. So the customers, they want bright colored, it's not all customers, but vast majority. The same way, sugar, the popular, I don't want to name the brand name, mention the brand name. They introduced this small cup, the tea and coffee. So I asked the manager, one of my former students, why are you feeding so much of sugar to the nation? He said, so we introduced low sugar version, but there's no demand. So customers always want to have high strength sugar. So that is what is happening. So partly, both parties are responsible. Non-nutritional sweetness, we are using many. Aspartame, which is right there onto the right. Aspartame is the combination of two natural amino acids, aspartic acid and phenylalanine. So it has an advantage. These top class cola drinks, again, I don't want to mention the trade names. Until 2017, they use aspartame. But later on, they identified more and more problems. So aspartame was dropped. Now, instead, they are using stevia glucoside. It is directly coming from a plant. Then sucralose. Sucralose, this is sucralose. You can see this is sucrose, but the peculiar nature is there are 3 chlorine atoms, one here, one here, one here. So other than that, so in sucrose, these are all OH, but 3 OH ions are replaced by chlorine. So therefore, body enzymes cannot recognize this. Body enzymes cannot digest. So it is good. So we get the sweet taste, but non-calorigenic. Aspartame, you might argue that, okay, aspartame being 2 amino acids should provide 4 kilocalories per gram. Yes, aspartame provides, but aspartame is 180 times sweeter than sucrose. So you are using minute quantity, so the contribution to calories minimum. Cyclamate, saccharin, acesulfam potassium, these are already in use. So there have been some rumors about cyclamates and saccharin, but when we had a closer look at this, their experimental models had been completely wrong. So they have concluded wrong. So therefore, now cyclamate and saccharin, they are not used as general purpose sweeteners, but even in Sri Lanka, saccharin is used in infant toothpaste, in some pharmaceutical coating, saccharin is in use, not for regular foods. Flavor enhancers, another controversial compound, commonly known as Ajinomoto is the trade name. It was first identified in Japan by one of the scientists. He derived this from seaweed. This seaweed had a very intense salt flavor, but it was not absolutely salt flavor. So he gave a different term, umami flavor. So that time we had only 4 flavors and it was added. 5th flavor is now known as umami flavor. Ladies and gentlemen, this monosodium glutamate Glutamate is glutamic acid. That is a natural amino acid. We find glutamic acid in large quantities in many foods. In cheese, Parmesan cheese, mozzarella cheese, in mushrooms, in soy sauce, we find hell of a lot of glutamate, free glutamate. And this is a sodium salt. So based on the very important question is whether is M.Sc safe? Well, monosodium glutamate is found in many foods, found in first 1906. Until today, there are no scientific data to prove that it is unhealthy for regular healthy population. So taking little bit of M.Sc is of no harm, does not cause any serious harm to humans, healthy adults. But we don't know about pregnant, lactating women, children, immunocompromised, elderly. We don't know. Regular healthy people, yes. If you can avoid, better. But even if you occasionally, if you take a little bit of M.Sc, I mean, it's in some countries like Philippines. Now we are using salt as the vehicle to deliver iodine. Iodized salt is mandatory in Sri Lanka. But in some countries, vehicle is M.Sc. They use a lot of Oriental countries, Thailand, Philippines, China, Korea, they use a lot of M.Sc. So unsubstantiated. But in the world, there are about 3%. They have idiosyncratic issues with M.Sc. They develop migraine and all. They should totally stay away from M.Sc. But for the other healthy adults, taking a little bit of M.Sc is of no. So use wise. But unfortunately, in Sri Lanka, the fried rice makers and other people, they use excessive amounts. That is a problem. But if we are using a small pinch, it won't create any problems according to the data we have so far. But this might change. One good example is non-nutritional sweetness. Under non-nutritional sweetness, there is one called erythritol. There are many. Those are called sugar alcohols. In bubble gums, chewing gums, mouthwash, etc., you find this. Xylitol. Xylitol is the major one. There are others like maltitol, lactitol, sorbitol, mannitol, all sugar alcohols. All of a sudden, in June this year, Stanford University, as I remember, published an article in journal Cardiology indicating that xylitol leads to thrombosis, so it can lead to cardiovascular diseases. Still, it has to be consolidated, but there's clear evidence that erythritol can be thrombogenic. Thrombosis can occur. So that is something that you have to be vigilant. Science changes. According to existing data, we don't have anything against M.Sc. Sugar-sweetened beverages, how about cola drinks? Many ask this question. Well, rather than refusing this, we should know what is there. They contain pure water, carbon dioxide is added, sugar, color is purely by sugar caramel, phosphoric acid is used, little bit of caffeine coming from cola, and natural flavors, nothing else. So here, in my mind, the biggest problem, two problems. One is sugar. Of course, it gives a lot of sugar. And not only cola drinks, there are many other things. Even plain tea in Sri Lanka provides more sugar. Then phosphoric acid can be a little problem to your enamel. Other than that, we don't find any major problems in these cola drinks. You have to use wisely. Rather than completely refusing, know what is in there. If you wish, you can consume. Tea and coffee. Tea and coffee also, not only tea and coffee, chocolates, they do contain caffeine. Well, caffeine up to 200 milligram safe. It increases alertness, reduces drowsiness. In a little while, you might feel drowsy. So caffeine is good. It keeps you awake. It improves problem solving capacity. It improves even typing speed based on research. So coffee contains the highest, followed by tea. So good to have. Then people are worried, especially pregnant ladies and lactating women. Kopi piwahama lamayata prashnayak වෙනවා. Yeah, it can be a problem if you drink more than 25 cups of coffee per day. I don't think anyone would go up to that level. But if you consume more than 200, yes, it is mildly addictive and it is a diuretic and the person can develop caffeineism. Safety of milk is another controversial subject. Well, there have been many arguments under the previous regime whether liquid milk is better than powdered milk. Well, in my mind, the milk powdering process is one of the safest in the world, safest processing technology. Milk is sprayed into a chamber about 40 feet tall. Atomized milk is ejected and it is falling down. Hot air is going up, counter current, and immediately within few seconds, you know, those who can remember physics, under Stokes' law, they fall down. Within few seconds, milk is dry. It is collected and packed. As simple as that. So one of the safest technologies. So there have been some allegations. Well, these dairy giants, they manipulate all this. This basically, in my mind, nonsense. Large organizations won't do this kind of dirty business. So liquid milk, if you can, but practicality, look at in Sri Lanka, although we see people are wearing good dresses and they are using better cars, but you know how many refrigerators are there in Sri Lanka? Only 60% have access to refrigerators. So those who do not have liquid milk they cannot keep. Then liquid milk is expensive. Practical issues. Liquid milk, how much? Introduced to Sri Lanka by large companies in Tetra Packs. You can keep for 6 months outside without the help of a refrigerator. 180 rupees, I can remember very well in supermarkets. But now how much is it about? It reaches about 500 rupees. So can you afford? So these are the practical issues. In other countries, they bring the argument that, okay, Australia, they don't drink powdered milk. Yeah, because they are used to liquid milk. USA, they never use powdered milk. Powdered milk is used for baking and other bakery items. But our situation is different. How much of milk is produced in Sri Lanka? Only 40% of our requirement is produced in Sri Lanka. The rest should come from elsewhere. If we can produce locally, fine. Then how about these items popularly known as ketchup, sauces, ketchup mostly. This base is tomato paste. Tomato paste is used. Tomato paste we don't produce in Sri Lanka. Previously we used to buy from India. Now it is coming from China. Then we add certain other ingredients, spices, etc. and make ketchup. So it has significant amount of salt. Other than that, I don't find any major issue. What oil is the best? That's again a very tough question. Coconut oil in terms of nutrition is 92% saturated. So ladies and gentlemen, it is very well established through 70 years of research. Saturated fatty acids are cholesterologenic, whether we like it or not. 75% of cholesterol is de novo synthesized, and the rest is coming from elsewhere. Just give me a second, please. Sorry about that. So coconut oil has to be limited. There's a formula. According to formula, saturated content should be limited to 10% of our daily requirement, daily calorie requirement. If our calorie requirement is 2000, only we will look at fat first. Fat should contribute only to 30%. That is a more. Out of that, saturates should contribute only to 10%. So it is a small amount. So therefore, coconut oil can be used, not only coconut oil, coconut sambola, and coconut milk, that should be limited. Other than that, coconut has a big problem, that is aflatoxin issue. If you go with good quality coconut oil, is virgin coconut oil, you are perfectly all right. Even virgin coconut oil can be diluted, adulterated by our traders. It has been reported already. Now technology is out there. You get coconut, grate in the morning, dry using mechanical dryer, and simply expel. So by 2 o'clock, you have coconut oil called virgin coconut oil. No aflatoxin, nothing whatsoever. But unfortunately, if you depend on sun drying, definitely aflatoxin can develop. Aflatoxin is a severe hepatocarcinogen. It can affect both liver as well as kidneys. So therefore, purity, safety is a problem. And this is how at PETA, in PETA, how milk is handled, oil is handled. Another common problem, people asking whether chicken is safe to eat. Well, chicken is not genetically modified at all, 100% assurance from me. So then, how are they slaughtered in 1 month? Well, that is because of the genetic nature. It is not genetically modified. Earlier, within 45 days, they come to the slaughtering stage. But now they have improved the breeds so that within 30 to 35 days, they attain the right weight. So therefore, we don't need to give any hormones. That is their nature. So there have been some incidences reported in Sri Lanka where these contraceptive pills had been given. Our farmers, I don't think they will spend on these unnecessary things. Even if you buy this mithuri, you have to spend money. So therefore, it is a very slim chance that they use even these mithuri pills. It's out of question. So it is one of the safest food in Sri Lanka, one of the best protein sources in the country. Earlier, the cheapest protein source was egg, but now egg prices have shot up. So still egg might be cheaper, but chicken is perfectly all right. There's a little problem with antibiotics. Yeah, antibiotics are given. So residual antibiotics are reported in chicken. That is a little concern. So is it okay to feed girls since hormones are not added? I mean, even I have scientific reports, beef in other countries, in European countries where hormones are injected, even that beef does not contain significant levels of hormone compared to our estrogen and progesterone levels in the body. Spices and condiments. The problems I mentioned to you. One problem is how people adulterate and also add dyes. But all these are done to bulk ones. Packeted ones, very safe. I cannot say with 100% assurance, but mostly the packeted ones coming from reputed producers are very safe. And the other problem with spices is again mycotoxin issue. There's a study by Yogendra Raja. We identified so much of aflatoxins, not only aflatoxins, steric ochratoxin A, and few other toxins. So therefore, we have to make sure that they are not moldy. As long as they are pure, they are all right. So mycotoxin issue is very prominent in countries like Sri Lanka, where we have warm climate. So the vulnerable products, corn, copra, desiccated coconut, coconut oil, punek, peanut, even rice can be a problem. When rice gets moistened, damped, wet rice can be a problem. In summary, so all naturals are not safe. Food additives are used for a particular purpose. We have to use them wisely. As consumers, we should know the right facts. Assuring food safety, safe food supply is a shared responsibility of all. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, in Sri Lanka, we don't have a food safety authority, whereas many other countries like Canada has Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Then USA has US FDA. India has Indian Food Safety Authority. Bangladesh has. We have been far behind. It is within the mandate of Health Ministry, but Health Ministry is taking care of so many other things. And the other thing is that food safety is not within the perimeters of Health Ministry, because it goes cross borders. Department of Agriculture, Agriculture Ministry, Customs. There is pesticide registrar, ROP here. Then the Department of Animal Production, Health. So many entities are there. There are about 9 acts in relation to food safety. But unfortunately, as of now, we don't have a proper food safety policy. There's no such apex authority to coordinate all, and poor law enforcement. Because of this, our food safety is at stake. Yet we are not too bad compared to many other Southeastern Asian countries. We are quite okay, but there's a big vacuum here, the need of a coordinating body. It has never happened. This is basically what I plan to mention to you, sharing my experiences. Thank you very much.